How you doing, everybody? I'm Bryan Mirando. This is the Free For All podcast, and this is the first episode of 2025. I'm very excited to be back. Today I'll be joined by Steve Moriarty from the band The Gits, as he comes on and promotes his brand new book, Mia Zapata and the Gits, Story of Art, Rock, and Revolution. For all of you that don't know, the Gits were a 90s punk band from Seattle, right on the cusp of success, but unfortunately their lead singer, Mia Zapata, was murdered in the summer of 1993. Now, we are not going to be getting into very much detail about her murder or the case. Me and Steve are going to pretty much sit down and talk about Mia Zapata as the person and as the artist. So just a heads up for those that are hoping to tune in and hear more about the murder and about the case, this is not going to be one of those shows, so I apologize ahead of time. But please feel free to stick around and please continue listening to the show because we really do got a very good show for you today. Now, before I sit down with Steve, I just want to let everybody know, as like I said before, I took our 2-week hiatus. There is new content coming to the channel probably starting next week, so please stick around for that, as well as more guests that I'm in the works of right now in booking, so please make sure to stay tuned for all updates on this channel. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button where you will be notified about up-and-coming guests. So please make sure to do that. Now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Steve Moriarty. Steve Moriarty, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
You got the brand new book, Mia Zapata and the Gits, A Story of Art, Rock, and Revolution. Brand new book that you just published. I just got my copy today. I cannot wait to read it. Now, before we get into the book and before we get into the Gits and everything, I just want to say I got into the Gits when I was probably about 10 years old from watching an episode of the show Forensic Files when they did a special on Mia. Have you noticed that a lot of fans have come up to you and a lot of people have become more aware of the Gits due to being on those shows, like Forensic Files and Unsolved Mysteries?
Not so much. I think that mostly people that there's this fan base for those shows. And they're really into it. It's like they're groupies of those shows. And Unsolved Mysteries. What was the one you saw?
Forensic Files?
Forensic Files. There was City Confidential. There were several of them. Actually, we did about 9 of them, I think. When we didn't know who had killed her, so we were trying to find the killer. And the only way we needed to do that was to spread the word nationally and internationally. But in any case, no, most of those people they're not into music, right? So I think they got into the music that way, or would ever have gotten into music at all. But they were more into the lore, and that's why when I wrote the book, I wanted to separate from that because I wanted the band's legacy and Mia's legacy to be about music and creativity, and not about martyrdom or murder or anything like that.
Yeah, because I was about to ask that, because I noticed that when I was just flipping through the book today. I noticed it goes right up to when you guys started, a little bit before then, and then it ends right when you guys got your record contract. And it really didn't get into anything that involved her death or anything that involved the trial or any of that stuff. And I was wondering if that's why you did that. You wanted to focus more on her life and her legacy and not how, unfortunately, it ended.
That's right, Brian. I didn't want to. I thought that, the first 3 paragraphs of the Wikipedia entry about the Gits is about Mia's murder, and that just disgusted me to the point that I wrote the book partly to get rid of that, and to define a new narrative for her life, because she was becoming known as like a martyr for women's rights, and which sure we need that, but we don't need to focus on a murder, especially because I know that people that murder other people, especially women, they almost fetishize those shows. They watch them to the point that they get off on it, and they figure new ways to stalk and kill people. And I was told by someone in prison that it was one of the favorite shows that the prisoners would watch, especially the sociopaths, because they would learn about how to avoid police detection by watching those shows and how to get away with stuff. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was like, what the hell? Like, how can I possibly expect that my friend's legacy is going to be represented by the fact that she was murdered? And I wanted to get rid of that as much as I could, so I wrote the book in trying to change the whole the whole image, the whole idea of Mia Zapata and my band to be more reflective of her creative output and her songs and her writing ability and her painting, everything that she was as a human, which you'll find when you read the book.
That was an interesting point that you just made about, the people getting off on the murder shows and everything. I've always questioned that too, because I know a new thing that happened a couple of years ago, especially when they brought out the Jeffrey Dahmer Netflix special came out, the series. A lot of people watch that type of stuff. I don't find that to be fascinating. I mean, it's an interesting story. I can see it's for entertainment. It's no different than watching a horror movie, but they're almost glorifying Jeffrey Dahmer being the star of the show. And there was a lot of criticisms, especially to the victims' friends that were victims of Dahmer, that were against that show as well, kind of like what you said. This was a friend of mine that was killed by this guy, and you're kind of showing their murder in a show and making millions of dollars off it, and people are loving it. It was I remember when that show came out, it was the number one watch Netflix special, the stuff people were talking about for weeks. To me, I found that weird.
It's weird, and it's NBC wanted to do a show about the aftermath of after we found the guy and put him in prison 10 years after he was killed. NBC called up and they were like, we want to do a show on 24 Hours or whatever, one of their shows, and it was a very famous producer, I think it was Katie Couric.
Okay, I know who she is, yeah.
Yeah, and they were like, well, we want to do the show. And I'm like, well, why? And they're like, well, we want to show what happened. And I'm like, well, we don't. Why would we do that? We found the killer. We don't need to do the shows anymore. And she goes, well, the people want to know. And I'm like, I don't think that people need to know about this anymore. It's over. It's done. There's other people that need to be discovered and found. Other murderers that need to be smoked out of their holes. And there's no point in doing this. And they said, and by the way, we want to use all your music in any video that you have of the Gits. And I said, well, sure, you can have the video. But since you're going to be making so much money on the show, why don't you pay us $80,000 to use it? And of course they were offended and said, we'll give you $400 to use the music.
Get the fuck out of here.
And you will appear as well. And I was like, no, we're not going to appear. And so they hired actors anyway to play Mia and to play me and to play the guys and did the show anyway. But it just proved to me that what they had no real interest in doing anything good with it except for making money, and I couldn't deal with that. And they also had what do you call one of the people on the internet that come on and try to disprove stuff. Oh,
one of those Mythbusters or something?
Yeah, so they had all these people come on and make comments about how I was only after the $80,000. That I was just a greedy band member, so I was trying to get money from them. But I was just trying to prove a point, and they tried to twist it to discredit. I did the show anyway, and apparently it was well done, but we did not agree to it, and we decided not to. We haven't done anything since then, and anyone that thinks that we were in it for money is ridiculous. And in any case, I'm banned apparently. I have a lifetime ban from any NBC affiliate.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was tough because it really was just, it got to the point that it was just Mia's passing was being exploited and advanced music was being exploited, and so we decided to cut off really from all that stuff and sort of went into hibernation for a while to let it cool down, and it has. But it's interesting that Sub Pop has done the 3 releases, but you'll probably ask about that shortly.
Well, I mean, everyone wants to talk about, they came to you guys and do the NBC special. You guys did a fantastic job with the movie you guys put out about 20 years ago in 2005, the Gits movie. I feel if anybody wants to go out and check, it's actually available right now on Tubi. Everybody can go check. That was an amazing project and an amazing documentary. I think that was what they should have released more than focusing on some made-up series, was that movie. Because, I mean, it got into everything. It got into, the beginning, it got into the middle, and unfortunately it ends off with, the trial and her death and everything. I think that would have been a better thing to put out there and put more money into, maybe help you guys release that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Part of that film, I mean, what you don't know about that film is that before it was released, a 5-minute chunk of it was used in the trial of the murderer to show the jury the impact that it had on the community.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there was a 5-minute chunk of that film that was edited specifically for the jury, and I think really influenced them to find him guilty.
Oh, so this was being made at the same time as the trial was going on?
I think they started making it in 2000 or 1999.
Oh, really? I did not know that. I thought this was made way after the trial and everything was all said and done. I had no idea about that.
I mean, we didn't have an ending for the movie. And it so happened that developed while we were making the film.
But I always recommend that documentary to anybody because she had such an amazing voice. She was such an amazing musician. Like I said, I got into her obviously through Forensic Files. I'm like, what is this band? Was it like a local band? Then I went and did more research. I'm like, wow. Then I found your guys' albums and stuff. And it was like, wow, this girl was amazing. And I just became like a diehard fan from like her voice and her music.
Yeah, me too. When I heard her sing for the first time, I was a fan. And we had another band. We had like a blues band together, and we were buddies in college. And went on to study at the end of college. She was an art student, and I was studying pre-law actually. And then after college, that we're not going to do any of that. We're just going to move somewhere and be a band. So we just up and moved from Ohio to Seattle, and we didn't know what was happening in Seattle. It was just kind of like happenstance. It was just like. It was a coincidence that like other bands were getting popular. That Soundgarden and who else was there? Mudhoney, the other band. Nirvana was starting out. They started about the same time we did. We ended up playing with Nirvana, and our first show in Seattle, our first big show was with Nirvana there.
Did you guys get to interact with Kurt at all?
Yeah, I did.
What was he like to work with, and what was he like to be around at that time?
He was super shy, he was sweet, he was super shy, and he liked to party, but he just liked to be left alone, and he came up, I rapped with him, we played the show, and like he sat next to me, and we shared some, like we had a tequila, and we were passing back and forth with him, and he's like, I heard you're a good singer, and she's like, I heard you're a good singer, and yeah, each other, it was like funny. I didn't really even remember until years later. Oh yeah, that was that short kid with blonde hair who sat with us. That was a guy from Nirvana.
Now, was Courtney Love around at this time, or was this before Courtney and him got together?
I think it was about the same time that they were like maybe right before, because Chad was still the drummer. The drummer was still in the band, and it would have been the end of 1990.
Okay, so this was probably before Dave Grohl joined then.
Yeah, I was actually offered. I was recording with the Gits, our second single in the studio, and the producer, Jack and Dino, was like, "Hey, my friends in Nirvana are looking for a drummer. If you're interested, the guy from Elves is playing now, but you should try out." My band there, and I said, "Oh, well, I got my band. I don't want to do that." So I said no.
You turned down Nirvana.
I don't regret it. I don't know if I would have survived that band, but like it was. I remember saying like, I have my own band. I like my band better than your band. They sounded kind of like they had just recorded Bleach, and they put on there was a cassette of it, and we put it on so I could hear it. And I'm like, gosh, I don't know. It's cool. Like it's kind of neo psychedelic, kind of slow, heavy rock stuff, but I wanted to play punk rock, and that just didn't do it. It was like. Wasn't punk at that point at all. I think Nirvana became more punk than they started that.
Well, I've always said this, and people might disagree with me. I think Frenching the Bully's a lot better than Bleach.
Oh,
music-wise. I'm a bigger fan of that album than I am of Bleach. I think maybe because I like her voice, and I think Bleach and the hits that are played on Bleach are just so overplayed. I think it's just, that's what did it for me. It was just such an overplayed type of album.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I don't know, I think it's a good album and good songs now, but if Nirvana hadn't gone on to record, great albums, I think that that one would kind of get lost. Like, it's kind of like the fake African, safari music to like 12-tone, whatever that Kashmir sound is. But it's kind of slow and prodding, and I guess that kind of defined grunge is. But it would be better. Nirvana got much better, and probably because they were on the road so much. I mean, they were out doing it. I mean, they played relentlessly. They toured all the time, and I was jealous of their touring at a certain point when they went to Europe, and they had played. They played in Berlin when the Berlin Wall fell. Them and Tad. I ended up going all of them, but I saw it. There was like a weekly magazine called The Weekly in Seattle, and I read it, and there was an interview about their tour with Nirvana, Tad, and Moriarty in Europe during the wall falling. And they didn't really know what was happening politically. They didn't understand. And I did, and I was jealous. I was like, fuck, these guys, man. they were there at this time, this historical time that we recognized it. I was like, fuck this. And like, I'm going to book a tour of Europe. I'm going to go over there. So, like, a year later, I was able to like East Berlin and play there and stuff.
Now, who are some other bands you guys were working with, too, at the time, too? Weren't you working with, I know, even in the book, I saw posters of you guys working with Beck and the White Trash Debutantes, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden.
We played with Pearl Jam or Soundgarden.
I thought I saw Soundgarden in there. Okay. I might have got that. Or did they end up doing the benefit shows?
They probably donated some. Everybody donated some money to it.
That was really cool, yeah.
But we didn't play with shit. I mean, I was booking a club, so I get confused because I was booking an all-ages club in Seattle called the OK Hotel in the 90s, and 1 week or 2 weeks spread, we had No Doubt, Sublime, Green Day, who else would you know? The Wet Sprocket, I remember was one. Bill Frisell was his jazz guitarist. It was all in 1 week. JFA, Julie Foster's Army, and Agent Orange. I heard that.
Yeah, Agent Orange, yeah.
Yeah, Neurosis. All in one week, right? So, Babes in Toyland, L7.
L7, yes.
You know, that Massacre, like all the bands that were happening at that point. And they were all not happening at that. They were all just getting started and starting to be popular, but they all wanted to play this all-ages place in Seattle. And we paid them well, and it held about 400 people, and we'd sell it out to 500, and it was always like a really great show. But like, it's amazing how many of these dudes like ended up getting record contracts and being huge and dying and stuff. Like Bradley from Sublime, like I remember they pulled out. They were playing the show, and they played Tuesday nights for some reason. They always showed up on a Tuesday night to play, and I would book them for Tuesday, and no one would show up to see him. There'd be like 3 people there. I'm like, this is a really good band. I wonder why more people don't like them. Because they're not heavy, they're not punk, they're like reggae. And but they were really good, and I remember thinking that. And one night they were getting real drunk, and they were parked in the alley behind the place. They loaded up the van, and they left the back doors open to their van, so all their fucking t-shirts fell out onto the street, into the alley. And I remember like yelling at them, "Hey, you guys really hard stuff on it, traffic!" And they just drove away. They didn't care. And they were loaded in. And I remember like the next day, I'm driving around Seattle, or 2 days later, and all the homeless folks all downtown like had these Sublime hoodies on and stuff that they found in the alley. And they're all wearing Sublime hoodies. I'm like, well, that's one way to advertise your shit.
Well, it's so funny. All those bands you just mentioned all became very successful, and bands that maybe not as successful now are still talked about. Like Agent Orange, people still talk about. L7's still around. Sublime, unfortunately, he passed away, but they're still around kicking with Rome, Sublime and Rome. So, I mean, those bands got to still, keep their legacies going.
And they have good legacies. I mean, they were great bands. And it's strange, like, how many really great bands came from that era. I mean, we played in a small place in LA called Al's Bar. It was, like, basically a condemned building, but Beck lived above the bar, and, like, he would sweep up after the shows, and sometimes they would let him open the shows if he was nice, he worked especially hard. And he opened a Gits show one time, and me, our singer, was watching him play, and there was no one at the club at all, and I was playing pool. And she goes, "Hey, Steve, come over here for you." And I'm like, "What? Let's check this guy out. He's opening the show." Come out, and I'm like, yeah, he's kind of good. I was surprised. He was just this, like, kid, this blonde kid who had wearing, like, these, like, flag striped pants, like, these little flag pants. My girlfriend was, like, sitting on the floor in front of him, watching him play, and just Googling up at him, and I'm thinking, this guy's good. He's got cute girls watching him. He must be something. And he just lived upstairs, and he was real good. And then, like, a week later, that song "Loser" came out, and it was, like, huge. It was funny how many people just sort of, like, we rubbed shoulders with. I'm still finding out about bands that came to see us play that we knew nothing about, and now they talk about us. It's kind of an honor. It's kind of cool.
Now, I'd like to talk about Mia for a minute. What was she like as a person? Because I think that's something I don't really hear a lot about. People talk about, as we mentioned before, they're more talking about, as the band and as obviously what happened with her, but they don't really talk about her as the person.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was really trying to do in the book, is show her as a person. She was, I don't know, in a simple way, she was shy and introverted, and loved art, enjoyed art and painting, maybe even as much as music. And she was independent and really, it was like, she was walked to the beat of her own drummer, you would say. And very personal, like if she were talking to you, you would feel like you were the only person in the room, or the country, or the world, right? Because she would just
Yeah.
focus on, she was that kind of person. And live, singing, she would make people feel that every song was about them. Like she would have this knack for like connecting with the audience and made people feel like the songs were about that.
Oh, definitely. I get that from her music a lot. A lot of the stuff she was singing about is stuff I think that a lot of people can relate to as well.
Yeah, and we were showing a screening of the first experiment of that movie you talked about.
Oh, the Gits?
It was a 30-minute long black and white movie at that point. And some guy stood up in the Q&A afterwards and was like, I am going to kill myself. I was planning on it. It was a really rough time. My mother died, whatever. It was about a 35-year-old man. And I was going to kill myself, but I had on my turntable was a Gits record, and I put it on to mask the sound of me hanging myself.
Oh, God.
And listened to the lyrics. I started listening to the music, and I didn't because of that. It inspired me not to do that. I just want to thank you for that. And I was like, oh my God. My heart sank. I'm like, wow. Now I think I've done good in the world on that song. And that's the kind of the impact that she had on people.
And I'm sure she would have really appreciated to hear that. I'm sure she was probably one of those people that would have been like, wow, thank you so much. And she probably would have been appreciative to hear that, too.
If she would even believe him, she was very humble. She didn't think she was any good, which is what made her so good.
What kind of music was she listening to? Because I know a lot of people, compare her to Janis Joplin and to Betsy Smith. Was she listening to a lot of that stuff back then?
Yeah, she loved the blues, like Bessie Smith and Billie Holiday. She would listen to that stuff all night long. But she also loved Nick Cave and acts like Big Agnostic Front and Poison Idea and Black Flag and Canaries and Iggy Pop. So she had this like hardcore side of her and then this blues side of her. And she listened to crooners like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. So she had a real wide variety of taste. And I would go over and see her come down to her room and probably had like a dozen records at any time. They're always different. But she'd be playing constantly, like one side then the other, one side then the other. I think the record I heard the most was probably a Dean Martin record. Or a Billie Holiday record. Like those are two of her absolute favorites. In early Iggy Pop.
Because she does a killer version of A Change Is Gonna Come, and I feel that's a way better version than the original.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
It's the way her voice sounds, and it's the way it was recorded. It's like, wow, this is like a masterpiece.
Thank you. Yeah, really, there's this Sam Cooke wrote it, and then Otis Redding covered it, and then the Gits covered it.
Yeah, it's an amazing version.
That old R&B stuff, like from the 60s, when she was all over Aretha Franklin. Simone, Nina Simone, Eartha Kitt. We had a blues band together for a while. We did a blues song. She made up the lyrics, or she took lyrics from other blues songs, but it's in the book. We raided a university library before they tore it down, and there were all these records in the basement. We heisted a bunch of 10 inches and 78s. She just dug into them and started listening to them, and they were Paula Rainey and this old blues person, and Bessie Smith, and Big Mama Thornton.
Oh, yeah, Big Mama Thornton, yeah.
And even Muddy Waters and stuff, and she just dug into that stuff. I mean, we're only in our late teens, right? 19 years old, and she just absorbed it and just became that singer, man. She was from the South, she's from Louisville, Kentucky. So she had kind of a draw anyway. I think she really understood like the feel of the song of the South, really. She was authentic.
Now, did she have any prior singing skills before she joined the Gits, or did she just, start singing one day and all of a sudden like, wow, you're a good singer, this is something you should do?
I think Matt, our bass player, says that he's her strumming guitar and singing in her room. But both her parents were in the radio business. Like, my mom was an advertiser and for radio, and her father was a producer of radio shows. I think she grew up around a recording studio.
Okay.
Mostly just like listening to church music, like choirs, and music on the radio in Kentucky. And she was such a natural. I don't know where she heard it, but whatever she heard, she could sing. Yeah, she was just a brilliant, interpreter of music and her style. She had a very unique personal style. She had her own delivery, really nobody's like it. That's why people compare her to Janis Joplin. I think that she was more than that. She was better than Janis Joplin in a lot of ways because she wasn't just belting out there.
Yeah. She can stay in key, and she was, go higher range than Janis Joplin could.
She was able to navigate because we would play like 120 beats per minute or 160 beats per minute. That's this fast.
And it was such a unique way that you guys did it, different than, like I mentioned before, like Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains and, Soundgarden. Is like a lot of them guys stayed at the same range. Like you listen to Lane Staley sing, it's almost the same vocal pattern every single song. He goes, oh man, keeps in that same, where she could go and do a song where she sounds like, a Billie Holiday range, then maybe go down to a Janis range, and then she could probably belt it out and scream like almost like a Black Flag style. So, I mean, she could change her styles up, where a lot of them guys stayed consistent.
Tempos were really really hard to do because we were playing so fast. I mean, at that time, we were considered like a hardcore band. We played as fast as the Bad Brains even. And she could keep up with that. And she could spit out the words faster than a rapper, you know. But be also singing the phrasing and the note, hitting the notes and using melody even within a song that was super fast, right? So kind of like the HR from the Bad Brains meets Patti Smith or something like that. You know, like
I was just gonna say that about her. It was almost like, you know, you took some hardcore punk sounding music with like Betsy Smith vocals.
yeah, it was kind of like that.
It's very unique for that time. If you listen to her compared to other bands at that time, it's completely different.
Yeah, I mean, we challenged her. We challenged each other because they challenged me to play that fast because many the guitarists and bassists, they were from New York. Many hours at CBGBs going to see punk rock shows, you know, hardcore shows. I'd seen all the bands I had ever, you know, had heard of, really, of that era. I'd seen them live and during matinees when they were teenagers. And so they brought that feel back to start a band that way. And Mia and I were both from, she was from Health and I was from the Midwest, you know, just above Kentucky, Indiana. And so we had a different sensibility. Ours was more blues, maybe, influence or hard rock influence. So they forced us to play faster and to articulate the words and the music, you know, more like broken down ways that would cut the bullshit out, cut out the guitar leads, cut out the drum solos, cut out the flashy stuff, the crooning. It was more about like get the message across.
I was just gonna say, get the song done, get the message in and out, boom.
And get on to the next song.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we play shows with like 6 bands on the bill, so we play our 30 minutes and get that off stage fast. Because we were opening for these tough bands usually, like these hardcore bands. So we couldn't really mess around. You get paid $50 to like get up there and play your set and get the hell.
Like the Ramones used to do.
Exactly. That was the style. But faster.
Talking about Mia being a natural, how was she in the studio recording? Especially with the first record, Frenching the Bully. Was it an easy process for her to record? Or was she kind of, you know, shy and kind of, you know, a beginner when it came to recording?
We had to leave, you know, and come back and go to the corner store or whatever. So she could cut it every once in a while so she could be alone and do it just with whoever was producing it. So I think that producers saw an opportunity to work with a great person, with a great singer, and they really were great. You know, the people that we worked with to record us we were really lucky because they were so sensitive to that, and they were very cool about giving me her space and like clearing us out so that she could work on recording the songs by herself and not be intimidated by everyone watching her. So we didn't get a chance to record as much as we would have liked, but you know, we did as much as we could before she died.
Was there ever any Gits songs that weren't released?
There were what?
That weren't released? Because I know you did Frenching the Bully, which was the first record. Then you did Enter Conquering the Chicken in '94 after she passed.
Yeah, and there's if you go to Spotify, they've just been released by Zapata like about 15 other songs. So there were 1, 2, 3, I think 4 records really. And so there was Frenching the Bully, Enter the Conquering Chicken, and then one called
Kings and Queens.
Kings and Queens. Kings and Queens was a demo we recorded before. We were like,
Oh, that was a demo. Okay.
That was a demo, but it's 17 songs I think we recorded in 3 hours. But that sounded so good, her voice was so good on that we kept it on there. She was 20 when she did that. Frenching the Bully, she was 22, and Enter the Conquering Chicken, she would have been about 25. And then there are a whole bunch of songs on there that are her singing solo. I had a blues band with her for a while called the Barfield Blues Band, when our guitar player was just somewhere else, like in London or something. And we had a band, Matt and the bass player and me and Mia, and a different guitar player, and we recorded all our live shows, recorded on cassette. And when, I don't know, a few years ago I started going through all the cassettes and all the DATs and all the extra, the DVD, the
VHSs.
and stuff, and I found like all these songs that had been recorded, and her voice was so good that a lot of them got re-released on the recent reissue of everything that we'll talk about probably in a minute.
Now, do you have your hands in a lot of that stuff? Like what gets released, how it gets produced, how it gets mixed?
Yeah. We had a friend remaster and remix it.
Okay.
And that's Jack and Dina who did Nirvana and Soundgarden and all that release of my bands.
All right, because I know a lot of bands that are like in your situation from back then. They don't have the rights to their music, and it's like we're just gonna release whatever we want. You know, you give it to us, and we do what we want. Or do you have a say in what you're doing?
We always maintained we didn't take money early on. We never did it for the money, but we maintained our publishing rights, which means the rights to release or not release the music. And we
Smart move.
and finally 30 years later, we made a deal with Zapata Records in Seattle to release everything we had. They bought our entire catalog and outright. So we will get a royalty now, but the purpose was to keep it out there and available for people to listen to forever. And a big label like that can do it much better than we can. You know, we release some records ourselves. We're doing an event in Seattle on February 1st where the Gits will be playing. I'm not supposed to say that, but I just did. And we're going to get different singers to come on stage and do it.
Can you mention anybody's name of who's be singing with you guys?
No, I can't yet.
Oh, okay.
You can ask me later, maybe.
Okay, that's fine.
We don't have much time. No one's agreed to do it. But,
Okay.
But Seattle is actually getting by. The whole city is getting by, strangely.
That's amazing. Even I wanted to ask this real quick. I know Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses, you know, has made no bones about being from Seattle and sticking to the Seattle scene. Did you guys ever have any interaction with him?
Yeah. He's a really nice guy.
Okay, because I always wondered if he had anything to do with me as a Zapata. Did he ever donate anything when it came time to, you know, for the benefits and everything?
Oh, no. I don't know who really donated what, but, I think Pearl Jam helped out. There was another organization called Home Alive that started when Mia was murdered to teach self-defense to women in Seattle for free, especially women in the scene. And so they maintained as a nonprofit for 10 years, and they had to get donations from lots of people to keep going, and Pearl Jam put a whole lot of money and effort into that. And Duff did too, from Guns N' Roses.
Oh, that is awesome. Because I've always wondered if he ever had anything to do with Mia, because I never really heard him talk about her, but I was wondering, I'm sure a guy like that, if he knew about it, he'd be the first one to...
Yeah, it was a different echelon, right? It was like, there were certain people, they were so busy, like the rock stars that were rock stars at that point, to live in Seattle, like, they were traveling all over the place, they were in LA a lot, and we were really, like, solidly grounded local, but we were on tour as well, so we were kind of like on a different plane, and we were punk rock, so we were playing different shows than like the arena rock bands like Guns N' Roses and stuff. They were playing arenas when we were playing clubs, and we really didn't meet up too much. We would have, I think, had we finished the contract we were offered. We would have been playing much bigger venues, but we never got to that point, which is was disappointment, of course, right? Because it didn't happen as I thought it would have.
Because I was going to ask you about that later on, but I'll ask you now. Did that contract get, like, voided after that happened, or did you guys still have to fulfill the obligations?
The dude from Atlantic was the guy that was going to sign us to that label, which is the label of, like, AC/DC and Led Zeppelin and shit. Like, he was drawing up the contract the day that Mia was murdered.
Oh, jeez.
So I think he was, like, putting it in the fax machine when he found out. But he wrote in Salon.com, because he also was a VH1 VJ, and he writes now for the New York Times.
Because I remember I recognized him in the movie.
Tim Summer, yeah, and he was going to sign, and he was involved with Nirvana and Hole. But he said that, like, he ended up signing Hootie and the Blowfish, right?
Oh, Jesus.
That's a huge thing, because they sold millions of records, so that looks good for him. So in the Salon.com article, he wrote, I could have signed the best band in America, the Gits, but I signed Hootie and the Blowfish instead and made millions of dollars.
Jesus. That's kind of cruel.
That's sweet, huh? We were the best band in America to get a chance to play.
Now, I want to really get into that day when you found out about her passing. Do you remember, before we get into that, do you remember what the last conversation you had with Mia was?
Yeah, it's in the last part of the book. You'll have to wait for it. It's
okay.
Not for me to talk about, but yeah, I think you'll find it in the book. Because I mentioned what happened to her, the murder, or anything in the book.
Yeah. Well, do you mind talking about the trial real quick, if that's okay?
Sure.
Now, unfortunately, they found a scumbag that ended up doing this, Jesus Messina. What was being in the courtroom like when they brought him in and the trial started?
What was it like?
Yeah, was it hard? Like, what was the hardest part about the trial? I mean, you finally waited all these years to find out who did this. He's right there. I mean, what goes through your mind when you're sitting there watching this and hearing, unfortunately, the shit that ended up happening?
I think probably the courtroom was full of people that were there. It who are fans and supporters, but we had spent 10 years trying to find this guy. And then when I saw him, I had a flood of feeling, but I thought, how can I get to him? How can I kill him? What can I do to him? What am I feeling? Am I angry? I mean, how angry am I? It was confusing, right? Because I'm a pacifist, really. I'm a gun. I learned to fight, but I don't fight. And but I had these feelings that were overwhelming because this person had ruined my friend's life. It ended my friend's life and ruined mine. And so many other people. And it was like, I looked at his eyes and they were black. This like walls of death, really. And he was about 6'4", I think, and he was heavy set, like he looked intimidating. He looked like a monster and bald. And I did not speak English, so I spoke to him in Spanish and told him that he was an insect and impotent, and everything I could to offend him. I did it in front of court. We had a translator to translate for him, but no one else understood but him. So at least I got to say what I felt to him. When I took the stand as a witness, because I thought he might kill me, because I was any of us, because we were trying to find him. And I was the last person to see me. The three of us were. No, I don't think we were the last person to see her, but I was. They questioned me on the stand, the defense, about trying to prove that like there's some kind of money motive or something. And, I don't remember what it was, but they questioned me about Mia and the band and our intentions. And I had to sort of give a witness statement as well. And I used the time to talk to him, but I didn't have another chance to talk to him. I told him what I thought, and then they dragged him away in handcuffs at the end. But for, 6 weeks or so, the jury was out and they couldn't decide. And I thought we didn't really think that they were going to convict him. But in the end, we showed the film. And they convicted him, so.
See, that is something they didn't show in like the Forensic Files episode or the other specials they talk about. That is, they don't show how hard that was to convict him. They made it sound like this was like an open and shut case.
Oh no, they almost didn't. It was O.J. Simpson had gotten off really before that, like a few years before that, on buckets of blood, right? And the amount of DNA that they took from Mia was so minute that it was the smallest amount ever used in a conviction. So it was a landmark case.
Because I was just rewatching the Forensic Files episode earlier this afternoon. I was watching, I think it was the crime stories, the case. There was something I wanted to see in the episode that I could ask during the podcast. And they made it all both sound like, oh, we got this guy, we got his DNA, this guy's going to jail. But then hearing that it wasn't as easy as they made it sound.
It was never the case. No, it was always in question whether he could get convicted or not. And then it was only for, I think the maximum sentencing was 15 years for rape and murder, second-degree murder. And the judge passed on an exceptional sentence, which was 36 years instead of 15. And then the court threw it out a few years later, threw out the sentencing, so we had to go back and re-sentence him, and then he got 36 again. So he died in prison like 2 years ago of COVID.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's fortunate. Too bad he didn't suffer more, but that's just what happens.
Now, as I've been mentioning throughout this interview, we talk about the benefits that you guys ended up doing for Mia, and one of the benefits you guys ended up doing the band Evil Stig with Joan Jett.
Yeah,
did you know Joan Jett prior to this happening?
No, she heard about what happened, and she wrote a song called "Go Home or Get Home."
And that got regular play on MTV too.
Had a video that was an MTV premiere, and I saw it, and at the end of it, it said underneath it, "This video was dedicated to Mia Zapata, singer of the Gits, who died at this time." And so I wrote a letter to her, just fucking put a letter into the mail to her record label, and I heard back like 6 months later, "Hey Steve, I'm sorry that happened." And I wrote in the letter, like, if you really want to help, maybe I'll donate some money so that we can do this murder investigation. And but she wrote back and she was like, "Yeah, I'll do everything I can to help. I'm really sorry what happened. I really love your music, and like, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know." And then her manager called me a couple of days later. It was like, "Yeah, we'd love to help out." And so that turned into a benefit show, and then another benefit show. another benefit show, and then an album, and then a tour. Doing half Gits songs and half a first song.
Now, what was that first show like, appearing on stage without Mia? I mean, obviously you're on stage with a legend like Joan Jett, but you're not there. You're not there for a good reason. You're there, unfortunately, to raise money for your friend that unfortunately was murdered.
I never asked that before. That's a good question. It was weird, but I was always like, as a kid, I was like a huge Joan Jett fan. That's like maybe one of the first rock stars I ever really got into. Because I Love Rock and Roll came out in like 1979 or something. I heard it and I was like, wow, women playing music, that's so cool. But I also like the sound, you know, I like the punk rock sound and everything. So when I met her, I was smitten, to say the least. And I saw her play with the Police on tour one time. And I remember thinking, you know, I threw bottles at her because they didn't like her because she was a woman playing music. And I thought, man, she's so gutsy. She's up there taking this, and like she kept playing her songs even when people throwing bottles at her. So she was a woman on stage playing rock and roll, which really hasn't changed a lot. But I think Mia did a lot to change that sort of that prejudice, you know. And Joan Jett did it all a lot, and still is. But she went back, and then we met and had a drink in like Vancouver, Canada. She got close to Seattle on some project, and yeah, we ended up just being friends, and then planned out the shows, and then the tour, and then we recorded some of the songs live, and they became an album, and yeah, we're still friends.
Do you still keep in touch with Joan?
Not as much as I used to, but yeah, she's really cool. Hopefully I'll see her at the end of the month.
Was Mia a fan of Joan Jett's music?
I'm sure she was aware of it, but when we didn't have any contact, it was like so beyond us. It's like such a lofty rock star thing.
Okay. Yeah, because I really wanted to know that. I mean, you're playing, like I said, you're playing on stage with one of your rock heroes, but unfortunately it's not under the best of circumstances. Especially you're going on stage doing something you used to do with like somebody you consider to be a close friend, and they're no longer there. I was just wondering what that was like.
She was so respectful though and cool about it, and she really, I mean, she was very, she really put her soul into it, and she didn't fuck around, and I respect her a lot for that.
Well, I saw a video, I can't remember how long ago it was. She did that song live, and she mentioned Mia Zapata, and the song's dedicated to Mia Zapata, and she mentioned a little thing about Mia before she did Go Home. Still does that song live once in a while. She still mentions Mia Zapata on stage before she does that song.
Yeah, she had a big gift sticker on her guitar.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, she's a cool person, I think.
Now, after everything was all said and done, did you think of giving up on doing music? After the benefits were done and after, you know, time went by and they haven't found this guy yet, did you think of just giving up on doing music?
No, I never. I mean, when we played music since I was like 11 or 10 years old, and it's so much a part of my identity that I consider myself a musician before I did a punk rocker or a Git or anything. I was playing in bands before the Gits, and I kept playing afterwards, and I'm still playing in bands. So, no, I never considered stop playing.
Because you ended up doing that band, Dancing French Liberals at 48. Whatever ended up coming up with that? Did you guys do a record with that?
Yeah, we did a few singles, and we did an LP and some compilations. We were actually, I think, together when we did the Gits, and we toured the U.S. a couple of times. Yeah, we were super busy in that band, and we played with everybody all the time, but we didn't have that special something, right? That special something, we didn't have it. So unless we have that cream that rises to the top, there's no real reason to think that we remember it.
Was there ever any thoughts about, you know, replacing me and getting a new singer and continue going on with the Gits, or was that like not even an option?
No, we did. We auditioned. We auditioned a lot of people, maybe a dozen people, but I considered some really great people, but it just wasn't in the cards. It just didn't. It was such a personal loss and such a personal thing.
She was one of them singers, yeah, it's hard to replace.
We couldn't replace her, and I think, I don't know, maybe we could have, maybe we couldn't. I think we did what we had to do. And that was to try to start a band without her, with just us, the three of us, and we did it, but it was a real hard band to be into because, you know, there's so much grief involved.
Now, do you guys still do Git songs, or did you do Git songs with French Liberal?
Nope.
Oh, you guys didn't do any of the songs at all?
Nope, we didn't. We wrote all new songs for it. It may have been maybe it would have been the next Gits album of songs, you know, without vocals. Maybe it would have been the music for the next Gits album, I think, but it wasn't. She could have sang great on it, but she wasn't there. So Andy sang on it. guitars from me.
Okay.
Not the singer, so it happened right now.
Now, what are your projects doing now? You say you're still into music?
I am, yeah. I got a duet, just like bass and drum band, kind of like Royal Blood, I guess, called TV 1984, and we're touring a lot up and down the West Coast and playing in San Francisco and Miami.
Oh, that's cool.
I can send you some.
Oh, awesome. That'd be awesome.
I'm playing a cool band called Malaga, which means really bad hair.
Is your stuff available on Spotify, YouTube? Where can people find that?
Not yet. I don't think it is yet. But not yet. But it will be. Malaga, I'll do this stuff. I can send it to you.
Okay, I'd love to hear it.
And, so that's like a Latino sound, it's like a Colombian music form. Probably salsa music, but
Oh, it's all different types of stuff. Especially being a drummer. Drummers, for some reason, are always influenced by all kinds of different style of music. I know they're always into salsa and reggae.
Our brains are bigger, so we have more capacity to like.
It's really interesting with drummers. For guitar players and singers, they're like into like, oh, I'm into like the punk, or I'm into the screamo stuff, or I'm into like, that stuff. Drummers are always into like that more like world music style stuff from all over the place.
It's like the rhythms are so different, like there's only one rock beat,
If you really think about it, yeah.
We play Latin rhythms, like there's so many more, so if you're really into music, you really got to expand your taste out from rock and roll. I grew up playing jazz anyway.
Every drummer's always a jazz lover too.
It's really hard to do, man. It's really challenging. But yeah, it's so I try to bring elements of it into my playing, but not too much because it's pretentious.
Now the book is available, Mia Zapata and the Gits, a story of art, rock, and revolution. Just got my copy today. Where can people find this book? Amazon?
Amazon, or hopefully like a small bookstore in the community that's not too support. Amazon's got plenty of money. You don't need to give them more.
All right. Now, before we wrap up the interview, we want to thank you for being here. I have a segment on the show called The Hot Seat. I'm just going to ask you a series of just general questions just so that we can get to know you a little bit better, if that's okay with you.
Do I have to answer them fast?
No, you can answer them as fast as you want. All right, Stones or Beatles?
Oh,
Why?
because they're two sides of the same coin.
Okay. What is the most memorable moment of your career?
Waking up in a puddle of my own blood after being thrown into a barbed wire fence.
How did that happen?
No comment.
Okay. Is it in the book by any chance?
Oh, no.
Okay. Okay. What is your all-time favorite Git song?
Oh, I think it's Here's to Your Fuck.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, this is.
Mine's probably Seaweed.
Oh, thank you. That's a good song.
Okay. Best memory you have of Mia Zapata?
The time that she buried my cat and made me dig it up.
Mind explaining that?
It's in the book, but my cat died when I asked her to watch out for my cat, and the cat got hit by a car, and she buried it when it was dead, and then she wanted me to be able to say goodbye, so she brought me to where it was buried and had me dig it up, thinking that it was a bottle of tequila in there, but it was a cat, and I reached my hand in there and picked it up, and it was all gross, and I ran over it. It's gross here. I thought that was pretty funny.
If you could play drums in any band, what band would it be?
Oh, The Clash.
Okay, that's a good answer.
I could do it, I swear.
Now this one's going to be a little bit personal, I think, but I really would like to know this. If you could have one more conversation with Mia, what would you say to her?
Good job. Good work. Good work. You did as much in 27 years as most people do on your channel. That's it. Thank you. Thank you for that.
All right, Steve, I really want to thank you for being here. Everybody go out and get Mia Zapata and the Gits, A Story of Art, Rock, and the Revolution is available now. The links to order and buy the book are in the description below. Steve, I really want to thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. That's fine.
All right, thank you. All right, everybody, that's it for today. I really want to thank Steve Moriarty for stopping by. Everybody go and check out his brand new book, Mia Zapata and the Gits, A Story of Art, Rock, and Revolution. It is available on Amazon and everywhere where books are sold. And please, if you get a chance, please check out the Gits movie. As I said before, it is available on Tubi. It is free. It is a really amazing documentary I think everybody will enjoy. So please go and check that out, as well as the Gits music. It is available on YouTube. as well as Spotify. So everybody go and check out anything Gits related. I'm Bryan Mirando. This has been the Free for All podcast. Remember, do good to others like you do to yourself. I'll see you soon.